the wake of global modernization, humans introduced climate change is causing growing numbers of social inequalities throughout the world.
Throughout this news segment, we will discuss the rise of consumerism and how it led to the Paris Climate Accords.
And now, our 30 seconds of history.
During World War II, the people of America couldn't buy much because of all the resources needed to create consumer products were shipped off to the war. During wartime, companies advertised to keep the demand high even though the product was low. By the time the war ended, the American people were jumping to consume. From the war came new modern products such as plastic, styrofoam, nylons, and so on. The economy boomed and consumerism reached a level the U.S. has not seen before. Now, to Jake.
Did you know? Between 2014 and 2050, it is predicted that the number of city dwellers will increase from 54% to 66%. This shift from rural comfort to fast-moving city life is caused by a number of factors. For the aging generation, growing old naturally means it is harder to go about normal, everyday tasks, such as going to the grocery store or driving a car. Don't you agree, Jim? The convenience and the close proximity to individual needs to draw in this generation. In the same way, the city is even more appealing to younger generations. Large cities draw young people in due to their surplus of opportunities and appealing lifestyle. Younger generations have been completely immersed in the technology for several years of their life, if not their entire life. Nowadays, young consumers want the newest and most efficient goods and services quickly and as conveniently as possible. Back to Grace.
The industrialization of technology has made consumption more convenient than ever before. From Amazon to hundreds of thousands of online clothing stores, consumers are compelled to spend because it is so easy. This mindset of constantly wanting newer products will drive and has driven consumption through the roof. Take Apple, for example. Apple releases a new iPhone every single year that is supposedly better than the last one. And every year, their mobile phones only become more expensive. This marketing tactic of constantly producing product and making it seem more glorified than the last entices consumers to want their product even if they don't need it. We can also view this from a fashion industry standpoint. Fast fashion has become increasingly more popular in the younger generation. Fast fashion is the rapid production of clothing based on the latest trends. Clothing trends are constantly changing. Consumers desire to be a part of these because everyone else in the consumer market wants to be a part of it too. That's why brands like Supreme and Off-White can sell their products for outrageously high prices because the demand is so high. In the same way how companies such as Nike and Adidas are worth billions for their fast fashion production, people always want what they don't have, and this is what keeps these businesses booming. The industrialization, urbanization of America has only made consumption explode, and it will continue to do so. In a different light, population growth is slowing, meaning consumerism will be the main engine within the economy, which will be heavily carried by urban cities if it hasn't already. Now, to Charlotte.
Some people argue that consumerism and climate change denial are directly related, while some people argue that they are not directly related at all. So in this part, I will explore the relationship between climate change denial and consumerism. In 2014, the IPSOS conducted a survey. They asked people, do you think climate change is caused by human activities? Most that answered no come from core countries, while most that answered yes come from semi-periphery or periphery countries. And according to the World Bank, around 80% of consumption comes from core countries. The Federal Bank of St. Louis also pointed out that the US and the EU occupy most of the world's consumption. According to the World Bank, 6% of fossil fuel consumption occupies 6% of the world's consumption in general. We spent $4.7 trillion on fossil fuels in 2015. Climate change activists and politicians are trying to reverse this trend. They are trying to turn the tide to keep this consumption massive as the oil companies are earning a lot from that. They want people to deny climate change, and they deny climate change themselves. From this, we can see that rich countries tend to have a higher purchasing power, and to keep up with their lifestyle, they would love to deny climate change ever happened or is ever happening. Same goes to the oil companies. They want to keep earning, they want to keep benefiting from the kind of wealth they're gaining, so they keep denying it's happening. Now we are going to pass it on to Michelle and Gray.
Now let's go to Nick around the world talking about how poor countries are affected by climate change.
Hello, I'm field reporter Nick, reporting to you from the glaciers. And as you can see, the land is getting overtaken by water. In some poor countries, this is wiping out their land and causing millions of dollars in damage. Now let's fly to Niger, Africa, where there are severe droughts happening. The droughts are causing even more water issues. Low-income countries are already struggling to obtain clean water supplies. Now there is even less accessibility because of the droughts. Our next stop is in the Caribbean islands, St. Kitts. Here, farmers are struggling with crop flooding and land being too soft to grow anything on. With corn crops being one of the staple forms of food supply, the loss of farmable land would be devastating for their already nutrition-poor diets. While some places of farmland are being flooded, others are also experiencing droughts, making farming extremely difficult, if not impossible. On top of all this, the people of St. Kitts are now discovering that the pests infesting crops are becoming immune to their chemical sprays meant to kill them. Agriculture in all is becoming doomed in the country of St. Kitts and many other islands in the Caribbean. Now, I'm going to send you guys over to the other field reporter, Anar.
Here in my hometown, Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia, we are one of the most polluted cities in the world. With all this pollution in the air, diseases, allergies, and asthma are becoming more and more common. The medicine is often too expensive for a majority of the citizens. This isn't just happening to my hometown, but all over the world as well. Now let's head back to Michelle and Grace in the studio.
Breaking news. Paris Climate Accords approved by 196 countries. We are saved. We are saved.
The Paris Climate Conference, in which 196 countries attended in December 2015, came into full effect during the following 2016 year. The non-binding terms of resolution, which helped in the initial ratification of the accords, is held together on the belief that countries will volunteer to initiate the mandates of the climate accords. Despite this, the United States was one of the several countries who did not ratify the accords into their own national law. This soft compliance, the ability for member countries to neglect the duties outlined by the Paris Accords, gives rise to growing concern that the Paris Climate Accords will ultimately be redundant. Traditional soft compliance treaties often fail to enforce the principles outlined within the agreements, more so than obligatory treaties. In addition to this, the Paris Agreement neglected to outline specific plans of action for developing and developed countries. Developed countries, the United States, China, and Japan, argued for obligatory commitments from developing semi-periphery and periphery countries, such as those in Northern Africa and Eastern Europe. However, proponents such as the EU and most periphery nation states within the conference lobbied for an obligatory commitment from leading developed nations to assist in financial radical change within their respective nations. As you can see, neither outcome occurred. Instead, the non-binding agreement was designed to allow a verbal commitment and a lapse of a legal one. The real question lies not within the global political stage, but whether the masses can effectively push for a change. Examples of this are already present in U.S. cities, who in response to President Trump's decision to rescind U.S. participation in the climate accords, vowed to reduce their own emissions laid out by the accords. The delusion of the Paris Climate Accords swept the global media and thrust climate change action onto the political scene. Seemingly, this issue became politically decisive during the 2016 election and still remains a large or even larger issue today.
Breaking news. Trump announces that the U.S. is pulling out of the Paris Climate Accords. He believes that the deal is unfair to the U.S. and favors China and India. Trump had to show that the U.S. is willing to do whatever benefits them, and the accords will not be beneficial in the short term.
This money would mostly come from us, the taxpayer. This deal is also taking away from the people within the coal industries. Trump is trying to make sure the coal industry does not fully collapse so the people of America do not lose all their jobs. Renewable energy industries have been growing and creating jobs as well. The United States is taking action, just not through the Paris Accord.
I guess the U.S. has a pretty strong pull-out game then.
Now let's hear from the people of Miami on climate change. Ma'am, please step out.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on climate change?
Isn't that where the polar bears are dying?
How does climate I need to step out here.
Oh.
Thank you. How does climate change affect society?
I'd say it affects society because we have to regulate emissions a lot as a result of it. And like it changes the production in cars and stuff and all that stuff because cars are a big contributor to climate change, obviously, as we know, because they emit lots of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, which is just like, which rapidly increases the rate at which climate change works, you know?
I know. So do you support the activism towards climate change, reducing the temperature around the globe?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Like, I don't want Antarctica to melt and stuff,
Right,
and
right.
then just take
no one
California.
wants it. Right. We don't want the forest fires.
No,
Right.
absolutely not. Like,
Right.
California's on fire, and it's just a regular thing nowadays, like, to be on fire. Like, the rest of the country's covered in snow because of climate change, and California's just still on fire because now that's normal, thanks to climate change.
What about the
Being more arid.
Paris Accords? What do you think about the U.S.'s stance on Paris Accords?
I actually, to be honest, don't know too much about the Paris Accords.
I understand.
But as long as it's making strides towards helping the nation,
We're not making
and
such strides.
we're not,
We are not.
as like with the Paris Accords.
We are not making strides with the Paris Accords.
Okay, well then,
Anna?
I would hope that we get ourselves out of the Paris Accords in order to help us create a safer environment so that we can actually be on this planet for a little bit longer, no matter how long.
Thank you for your time,
All right,
young sir.
you're very welcome. Have a nice day.
You too.
Wow, what a show tonight. We will be taking calls for a little after the show ends. If you guys have any questions, just hit us up.
Towels.